All right, welcome to English 3E. This is week 5. We are on unit 3, and this is class 17, and I am Jillian Percy. We are currently working out of this unit. You should see this little picture there. And here are the ways to reach me. I am in the studio from 1-800-465-7144. You can call the WASA office, 1-800-667-3703. You can fax work to 1-800-463-7852. And you can email me any questions at jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. If you want to rewatch a video, it is on YouTube, capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit today about quotation marks because they're useful when we're doing our writing and also when we're doing our reading. Quotations often use what's called a tag. A tag tells us who is speaking and how they are speaking. Tags can come at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of a quotation. If it comes at the beginning, we use a comma after the tag, and before we put the quotation marks, we also put a capital on the first word because it's the beginning of the sentence. So here's an example like, he yelled, comma, she whispered, comma, the principal shouted, comma, the teenager muttered, comma. Now, it can also go in the middle. You can split up the quotation, have part in front and part at the end. They would be enclosed in quotation marks. If you do it in the middle, there's no comma before it, but there is a comma afterwards. There's no capitalization, okay? At the end, you can totally put the tag at the end of a quotation mark at the end of a sentence. When you do that, there's no comma before the tag, and there's a period at the end of the tag, as long as a period is what you're doing, right? Sometimes you might be asking something, in which case maybe you've got a question mark. There's also no capitalization. Sometimes we're reporting actual speech, whether it's real speech, something somebody really said, or imaginary speech, our characters are saying in a story. All the rules about quotations apply in those situations, whether it's real or not real. That's referred to as a direct quotation. But occasionally in writing, we report what someone else has said in kind of a general way, rather than as an exact quote of the actual words. When we do this, we don't use quotation marks, and we do not need to worry about any of the following rules, okay? That's called an indirect quotation. Usually it means that somebody's reporting what somebody else said in a general way. Not always, but that's typical. So here's some examples of an indirect quote. Dad got mad and said, we need to play ball outside. Okay. So dad isn't actually talking. Someone else is telling them what dad said. If this were exact speech, it might say, dad said, go play outside. Another example is, we don't need to wait for Sarah because she said she wasn't coming. Again, somebody is reporting what Sarah said. They're not quoting her exactly. They're just kind of reporting generally. If this were exact speech, it might say, Sarah said, I'm not coming. So when it's not an exact quote, you don't need to use any kind of quotation marks. And then none of what we're talking about next applies at all, okay? So there are a bunch of rules in your unit. I thought they were phrased somewhat confusingly, so I kind of redid them. So I apologize if that is confusing. I thought this was much easier to understand. Hopefully you also find it so. Use quotation marks to begin and end a direct quotation, but not an indirect quote. We just talked about that. The first word inside the quote is capitalized because it's the beginning of that person's sentence. If a tag comes at the beginning of a sentence, it is capitalized and followed with a comma before the quotation starts. For example, Jack said, I win. If a tag comes in the middle of the sentence, it is not capitalized, but it is still followed by a comma. I win, said Jack. You lose. If a tag comes at the end of the sentence, it is not capitalized and it is followed by a period, generally when you're using a period. If the quoted speech ends in a period, but the overall sentence is not done yet, we just use a comma. However, if it's an exclamation point or a question mark that the person's using as they're talking, we will still put those in, okay? They will all occur inside the quotation marks. You can see here, I want hot dogs, comma, she said. Can we have hot dogs? Question mark, she said. I hate hot dogs! Exclamation point, she said. When the end of the quotation is also the end of the sentence, the period falls inside the quotation mark. So now we're using the period because we're at the end of our complete sentence. Again, as long as the original sentence would have used a period. This is also true if we're using a question mark or an exclamation point. It ends up doing double duty. It's the end of that person's quote, and it ends up also being the end of the sentence, okay? When the original sentence ends in a different punctuation mark than the quotation is using, simply put it after the quotation marks. Put the correct punctuation for the quotation itself inside the punctuation marks. Did she really tell you, get out of here? Or, I can't believe he said, my real name is James Bond. Now, having said that, this is correct, but a lot of readers will find it confusing. I would try and avoid writing this way if you can. Both parts of a divided quotation are enclosed in quotation marks. The first word of the second part is not capitalized unless it's starting a new sentence. This soup, the elder said, tastes just like my gookums. Quotes within a quote. If you need to have one character directly quoting another character, then use double quotes for the main dialogue and single quotation marks for the quote within a quote. So here's their main quote. And then he said, now he's quoting what the person said to him. This is your last chance around here, Jimmy. And now it's back to him talking. What a jerk, he said. When you write dialogue, begin a new paragraph whenever the speaker changes. That way, even if there's no tag, we can tell who's talking. So here's the example. The teacher's talking here. Sit down, she said. Let's talk. Are you going to do this every day? What? Now, it could say he said, but we know she's sitting there talking to Jimmy. Okay, so we don't really worry about it in this case. What do you mean? What? And that's her talking back. Again, tags would help this, but we use the new paragraph each time, and that helps it even better. Use a pair of dashes to indicate an unfinished statement or a question. It may get continued later on, or it may not. That part doesn't matter. But if the person's getting cut off in the middle of a sentence, so the sentence is going to sound weird, right? You kind of want to indicate to the reader, you know, it isn't a complete sentence. And you do that by putting the dash there so that they understand the person wasn't finished talking. They got cut off. So here's an example. First of all, he said, if you can learn a simple trick, son, you'll get along better with all kinds of folks. You never really understand a person till you consider things from his point of view. Huh? Until you walk 2 moons in his moccasins. So here they've put the beginning dash to show that this is the guy continuing his sentence. But it's possible something would happen in the story, which would mean maybe he doesn't get to finish his sentence at that point. Number 11. When writing only a part of a quoted sentence, like when you're doing a research essay, for example, do not begin the quotation with a capital letter unless the person you are quoting capitalized it, or it's the very first word in your sentence, like if you begin with a quotation. Sometimes you might also use an ellipse to show that it's not the complete sentence. So, for example, Robert Checkwich admitted he had not found many novels that were based in First Nation communities, or Robert Checkwich admitted he had not found many novels that were based in First Nations communities. Either way, that is correct. I like the ellipse, but it's not wrong to do it this way. Okay, so I wanted to kind of show a little video. I thought this guy explains things really, really well, and then we can do a little trial run of it. Let me see here.
lesson. Today we're going to be covering quotation marks.
Can we hear him? Hang on.
In dialogue.
Okay. Sorry for the ads here.
So whenever somebody speaks in a sentence, there's always what I like to call a speaker tag that shows that someone is actually talking. The most common speaker tag in English is said, like he said, she said, I said, whatever. But you could also have stuff like I whispered, or he yelled, or she replied. There are thousands of different speaker tags that you can use, but the point is that when you see these phrases, it usually means someone is actually speaking. Not always, but usually. Anyway, in today's video, we're just going to be talking about how to write lines of dialogue when the speaker tag comes before the spoken material. So like at the beginning of the sentence. Let's take a look at an example without any quotation marks or other stuff in there yet. I said, hello there. Okay, so in this sentence, what is our speaker tag? What words show that someone might actually be talking here? Answer is, I said. Okay, so if that's the speaker tag, then we have to look at the rest of the sentence and see if that's something that someone would actually say. We've got to see if it makes sense to be spoken out loud. And it does. It makes sense for someone to say hello there. Okay, so what do we do then? Well, since the words hello there are the ones actually being spoken, we put quotation marks around them. And notice how, at the end of the sentence, the quotation marks go on the outside of the period. Very important. Now, we have two more things to do. The first thing is that we need to separate the speaker tag from the stuff that's actually being said. And we do that with a comma. And the last thing we need to do is capitalize the first word of the spoken material. Why? Well, because that's the first word of this person's sentence. They're speaking a sentence. So we've got to capitalize their first word. Okay, let's see if you can do a couple. Here's the sentence without any quotation marks or anything else. He asked, do you guys want to go to the mall? All right, first step. What is our speaker tag? What words show that someone might actually be talking? Answer is, he asked. So now that we've found that, we need to read the rest of the sentence and see if that's something that makes sense for someone to actually say. Do you guys want to go to the mall? Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So the next step is to separate the speaker tag from the spoken material. And remember, we do that with a comma. And the final step is to capitalize the first word of the spoken material because that's the first word of this guy's sentence. 3 more. She said, I need to go home now. Okay, find your speaker tag. Boom, she said. Now read the rest of it. Does that make sense for someone to actually say? Yes, it does. So we throw some quotation marks up around it. Boom. Now we've got to separate the speaker tag away from the spoken material, so we throw a comma in there. And the last thing we've got to do is capitalize the first word of this person's sentence. But it already is capitalized, so we are good. 2 more. Mark said that he needed to leave at 5. Okay, find your speaker tag. Should be, Mark said. Now, read the rest of the sentence. Does that make sense for someone to actually say? And the answer here is no. This does not make any sense to say out loud. Think about it. Think about someone saying these words out loud. That he needed to leave at 5. Makes no sense. So what does that mean? Well, it means that no one's actually talking in this sentence. We've got the idea of somebody talking, but it's not written in a way that requires us to use quotation marks. So, in this situation, we do not do anything. We leave the sentence just as it is. So that's something you got to watch out for. You can't just see a speaker tag and think, ooh, quotations, I've got to use quotation marks, because that's not how it works. You have to actually read the rest of the sentence to see if it makes sense for someone to say out loud. Okay, last one. The librarian whispered, please keep it down. All right, what's a speaker tag? Good. The librarian whispered, this whole thing. So, read the rest of it. Does that make sense for someone to say out loud? Yes, it does. Cool. So throw some quotation marks up around it. Then we've got to separate the tag from the spoken material, and after we do that, we've got to capitalize the first word of the spoken sentence. Cool, so that's it for part 1 of our quotation marks and dialogue series. But don't worry, we're going to be working through more and more of this concept in the next couple
All
videos.
right, hang on. So I really like how he separated this out and just did all the different ways that you can do quotations when the tag is at the front, because of the weirdness of how this all works, it's different from the front to the back. So here, this one, he kind of talks about it when it's coming at the back.
Today
so
we're going to be continuing our study of quotation marks in dialogue. Okay, so last time we looked at how to write lines of dialogue with the speaker tag at the beginning of the sentence. Today, we're going to be looking at how to write lines of dialogue with the speaker tag at the end. So let's throw up a basic sentence without any quotation marks and stuff and see what we're looking at. I'll be home soon, he said. All right, so you should remember from last time that the first thing that we always need to do is find the speaker tag, find the words that tell who is actually talking. And in this sentence, that would be, he said. And again, if you remember what we did last time, you remember that the next thing we've got to do is read the rest of the sentence and see if that's something that would make sense for someone to actually say. And it is. I'll be home soon is a fine, functional sentence in the English language. So what do? Well, we put quotation marks around it. This shows the reader that these words are being said out loud. So now we've got a sentence that looks like this. Quotation marks, I'll be home soon, quotation marks, he said. Now, here's the test. Do you remember what we do next? Answer is, comma. We've got to put in the comma. And that comma is supposed to separate the stuff that's being said from the actual speaker tag. And we want to put this comma inside the quotation marks. So now we have this. Now, if you remember in our last video, we talked about capitalization, like capitalizing the first word of someone's sentence. Well, if we look here, that's already been done. And we do not, I repeat, we do not have to capitalize the speaker tag unless it's at the very beginning of a sentence, or if it's a proper noun like I said or Tom said or something like that. Now, there is one rule we have to remember when it comes to speaker tags that come after a quote, and that is paying attention to what kind of quote we have. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at this. Can you come over, I asked. So of course we got to do our usual thing here. Got to find the speaker tag, which is I asked, and we've got to read the rest of it, got to see if it makes sense. And it does. So we get those quotation marks up. And of course, we've also got to remember our comma. But wait, what kind of sentence is this? Can you come over? What kind of sentence is that? That, my friends, is a question. So in this situation, instead of putting a comma inside the quotation marks, we want to put a question mark to show the reader that this is a question. The same thing is true for when people are shouting. Put that down, she yelled. We do our thing here. Our speaker tag is she yelled. The rest of the sentence makes sense. We put up our quotation marks, but I don't actually want a comma here. Why? Well, because this is somebody shouting. And if that's the case, I should be using an exclamation point. So let's try a few examples here. You're a great friend, she told me. Step 1, find that speaker tag. Should be, she told me. Step 2, read the rest of the sentence out loud. You're a great friend. Does that make sense to say? Yes. Yes, it does. Cool. So, get those quotation marks up. And finally, what kind of sentence is this? Is it a question? No. Is somebody yelling? I don't think so. So, we've just got to put a comma here, inside the quotation marks. Next one. Are you sure you want to do that? I asked him. First step, find the speaker tag. I asked him. Step 2, read the rest. Does it make sense? Yep. So we get the quotation marks up. And finally, what kind of sentence is this? Well, this sentence is a question, so we got to get a question mark in there. Couple more. I'm not sure that's what he said. Speaker tag? Boom. He said. Now read the rest of it. Ooh. What do we got here? I'm not sure that's what. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So just like in the last video, where we talked about how not every speaker tag is going to mean someone's actually talking, we've got the same situation here. No actual dialogue in this sentence, so no quotation marks. Last one. I love you, she screamed. Okay, first, find your speaker tag. She screamed. Now, read the rest. Makes sense. So, quotation marks. And what kind of sentence is this? Well, somebody's screaming, so we should probably use an exclamation point. Cool. Well, whether you came here for a refresher.
Okay, so I really just liked how this guy explained things. I thought it was really simple and straightforward. So I thought we'd give a try to doing some of our own. We're going to look at each sentence and then add our quotation marks when needed and see if we need to change anything else. So we have here, hi, Jim said to his friend. See if I can grab, scribble. So hi, Jim is the conversation. Let's see if that works. It's not the greatest, but it'll have to kind of do. I don't think I can get the smart ink there. Okay, so you've got the 2 lines there, and then you'd put the 2 lines over here. Let me see, will it, hang on. No, it won't let me do that. Okay. No, we'll settle for this. All right, so we put the other one here, and here. Oh, it keeps trying to grab the actual page. Sorry here. All right, so that's on other sides. Hang on. I'm gonna move my thing back here. There we go. Hi, Jim. Now said to his friend, I need to put a comma here. You know what? I'm gonna switch really quick over to the smartboard and see if it'll let me draw on it. I'm not sure if it will because this is Google, not Smart Ink, so I'm not positive if it will let me. Let's see. Well, let me do that. No, it won't let me read it. Okay. All right, I apologize. Because I didn't put this into Smart, I was having problems with Smart, so I took a little, oh, wait, it did. It did. Oh, yay. Okay, I'm gonna go back up and then we'll use it that way. Okay, so we've got what a wonderful day, said Mary. Okay, so said Mary is our tag. And then what a wonderful day is our quotes. Okay, good. So we're gonna put our little quotes there. Now, see how there's a comma showing that's the end of her sentence? I gotta make sure to put the quotes on the outside of the comma, and then we're okay there. Next part says, Sharon said, take your homework out. Okay, so there's our tag, there's the comma, here's the beginning of her words, and there's the end of the words. I'm gonna make sure to put the period inside the quotes. Now, I also need to fix the first letter and turn it into a capital because it's the beginning of her speech. My dad asked, when do you want to go to the movies? So the dad's talking, we've got the comma, and then when do you want to go to the movies is the quotations. So it starts at the when, it ends after the quotation, the question mark, and then we're going to turn the W into a big W there. Jeremy exclaimed, I won the race. So I won the race is what he's saying. We're going to put quotations, the beginning and at the end, after the exclamation point. It's already a capital I, so we're good there. Number 6, have a good night, said my mother. Okay, so the tag's at the end here. So we're going to put the quotations at the beginning. It's already all capitalized. We're good there. And right after the comma. Okay. Last one in this sentence. Mary said, what a beautiful day. Okay, so the tag's at the beginning. What a beautiful day is her speech. So we're going to put 2 quotations, beginning and at the end, and then turn that W into a big one. Let's go to the next page, which has actually some writing. I'm glad to see this is working. I wasn't positive it would. Oh, but now I've got to, can I erase it? Let me see if it'll work. Do you have the eraser thingy here? Oh, it's unhappy. It doesn't want to do that. Okay, hang on. I'll go through and just kind of quickly grab things. Oh, let me do it. Ooh, kind of want to let me do that. Okay, well, we're gonna have to skip that page because it just doesn't want to let me work it. Oh, and now I have little things over here. All right, hang on a second and I'll throw these in the garbage here. Okay, all right. If we have time at the end, we'll come back to that just because it'll kind of mess up my screen for a little bit because of all the writing I would have to do. So just remind me at the end. Here's our assignments for the week. We've done the one about Shemaiah. Yesterday we did the work with Alone in the Ocean, which was about the Vietnamese girl who'd traveled over on the sea. And today we're working on Borderline Genes ad, passes scrutiny here, and the assignments, and we actually kind of skip down and do number 11 as well too. Don't worry, the next page. So here's our more or less our assignments. Okay. So we're talking about ads today, and I was just kind of to start off thinking about, have you ever found some ads really offensive? Sometimes ads can be offensive for a lot of different reasons. We can all have personal interpretations of what's considered acceptable and unacceptable. And sometimes the standards change over the years. For example, it used to be fine to target smoking ads to children, and now that's illegal. Now, obviously, they aren't targeting this Marlboro ad to children, but they're certainly making it look kid friendly, right? Now, however, you see all these warning signs over cigarettes. I'm not even sure if it's legal to advertise cigarettes anymore. Cigarettes are a heartbreaker, and tobacco use can result in the clogging of arteries in your heart. Clogged arteries cause heart attacks and can cause death. Over here, we've got cigarettes cause lung cancer. 85% of lung cancers are caused by smoking. 80% of lung cancer victims die within 3 years. Wow. Cigarettes hurt babies. Tobacco use during pregnancy reduces the growth of babies during pregnancy. These smaller babies may not catch up in growth after birth, and the risks of infant illness, disability, and death are increased. And then we've got cigarettes cause mouth diseases. So before it was okay to advertise to children, now we're barely letting people buy cigarettes themselves without having really strong warning signs all over about how dangerous it is. Now, there is also a difference between what we personally find offensive and what's actually considered illegal to do in advertising. The big thing with advertising is they can't say something that is known to be untrue, like it's a proven lie. It's like a false claim or fraud. Okay. So we're going to look at the following advertisement, and I want you to think as we're reading it, what's the complaint about the ad? And is the complaint valid? Like, are they actually doing something illegal? So we have here, this is a Canadian one too. It's only from a few years ago. The dairy farmers pull an ad after complaints it allegedly misled the public. You see a nice little cow coming out here. It says an advocacy group for dairy farmers decided to pull one of its new ads after a number of people complained that it misled the public, according to letters sent to complainants from the Advertising Standards Body. The print ad in question is part of the Dairy Farmers of Canada's Honest Canadian Dairy campaign, which was developed by DDB Canada and launched at the end of January with a plan to run until March, according to DDB's website. The ad pictures a man standing in front of a pasture with the words, "There are zero growth hormones in milk produced in Canada, like none." Those words are emblazoned on the sky above his head. A picture of the ad circulated on social media and angered some animal rights activists, including Torontonian Jenny McQueen, a vegan for more than 25 years who volunteers for several animal rights groups. An animal rights group suggested people submit complaints to ad standards to say that milk contains a natural growth hormone, she said. The dairy farmers of Canada have been informed of the claims made by the lobby group, and the information is incomplete and inaccurate, wrote Lucy Boyle, Director of Communications for the farmers, in an email. She did not immediately respond to follow-up questions seeking to clarify her response. McQueen sent her complaint to Ad Standards, a national not-for-profit advertising self-regulatory body, on February 2nd. She was upset that the advocacy group appeared to be trying to mislead the public and had concerns over the impact hormones may have on human health. More broadly, she said she dislikes the way animal protein industry treats animals. McQueen and many other complainants received a response Tuesday to inform them that Ad Standards contacted the advertiser for additional information. We were informed by the advertiser that upon receipt of your complaint, the ad has been permanently withdrawn, reads the letter signed by Yamina Benacer, manager of standards at the organization. Ad Standards will close its file on the matter as a result of this corrective action. I was very pleased that they had seen that a company is using language that is not true, then said McQueen. The national ad campaign is intended to better inform millennials about Canadian dairy and clear up any misconceptions they may have, according to DDB's website, with an honest, candid approach to share truths about Canadian dairy products and the industry. It shares facts like the average Canadian dairy farm has 89 cows, and the corresponding video ad includes a man sharing the name of those 89 cows. Another print ad includes the text, "Real milk comes from real cows. Anything else is nuts," highlighting a growing war of words between dairy farmers and alternative milk producers such as soy or nut milks. Okay, so what is essentially the complaint? And is it truthful? Was that actually the issue? So right here, it's talking about that milk contains a natural growth hormone. In fact, without anybody adding anything, the cow milk has growth hormones intended to make baby cows grow big, right? The ad was talking about not adding any artificial growth hormones into the milk, but they didn't use the word artificial. They just said there's no growth hormones in milk, which isn't 100% true. There is a natural growth hormone in milk, and we aren't 100% sure how people respond to it, basically. So it was a valid complaint. So what happened was simply that the company withdrew the ad, right? Okay, there's been a complaint. It's a somewhat valid complaint. They felt like, well, we don't add anything, so it counts. The complainants didn't, but the ad ended up getting pulled. So it's a semi-valid complaint, right? All right, let's look at what's next here. Here's another one. Beachbody Ready advertisements spark widespread backlash. So the girl's standing there and it says, "Are you Beachbody Ready?" And this is an ad from Protein World, and it's called their weight loss collection, natural replacement and supplements. So this ad is not illegal, and it's not saying anything that's untrue. But what do you think about it? Why do you think that some people found this ad unacceptable? What's the reason? And do you agree with them? All right, let's take a look at this. This is over in UK, England. A weight loss advertisement in the London Underground featuring a bikini-clad model has sparked a backlash, with protesters saying the company Protein World is making passersby feel physically inferior to the unrealistic body image of the bronzed model. More than 50,000 people have signed an online petition calling for the posters for meal replacement supplements, which have the tagline, "Are you Beachbody Ready?" to be removed from London tube stations and train carriages. In addition, Britain's Advertising Standards Authority has received hundreds of complaints from people saying the ad promotes unhealthy methods of weight loss and encourages body shaming. Photos of defaced posters have gone viral on Twitter under the hashtag everybody's ready, while a Taking Back the Beach protest in London's Hyde Park has been organized for Saturday. In a statement, Protein World said, "Getting beach ready is not a new concept. We have absolutely no intention of removing the adverts because a minority is making a lot of noise." Arjun Seth, the CEO of Protein World, said the adverts were aspirational and likened the campaigners to terrorists. A Transport for London spokesperson told Time the advertisements were being removed on Wednesday because Protein World's contract had ended. The adverts were paid for 3 weeks, so they're just being taken down because they've come to a natural end, the spokesperson said. It's the natural conclusion to the end of their marketing. Okay. I personally question whether that's true. They may have paid for 3 weeks, but they may have fully intended to do some more, but maybe decided that was the end of it. So why were people upset? It's not that's not true. It's not that she's not super well dressed. It's because the phrase "Are you beach body ready?" has come to kind of imply like you could only go to the beach if you look like this. So if you're old, nope. If you're heavy, nope. If you're disabled, nope. It gives that impression that this is the only way you can look if you want to go swimming. Considering swimming is the way that many, many people all over many countries keep cool because it's cheap. You're just kind of going right in the water that's already there. It's really kind of harmful, I think. Having said that, it's not illegal, right? But it did cause some protest. So the story we're going to be tackling today is kind of similar. There's nothing illegal about the ad, but there is a complaint about the ad, and one family found it inappropriate and complained about it. So here's the ad. It's called, the ad doesn't actually show here. If you see here, this is kind of a physical representation of the ad, but we'll talk about the story. Borderline jeans ad passes scrutiny here. It's a Canadian one. A Dundas woman and her 6-year-old daughter stand alone in their fight to have a blue jean advertisement removed from bus shelters because they say it is sexist. Kitchener Transit officials, for example, have received no complaints about the Guess Jeans ad, which feature actress Drew Barrymore in a bare-shouldered, provocative pose that shows only a small portion of her jeans. The ad appears in 13 shelters in Kitchener and Waterloo. Linda Cluett lodged a complaint with Hamilton's bus company, saying the advertisement has no relevance to the product and exploits women. Told the ad was for jeans, Cluett's daughter says, "But it's just big boobs." But the staff at Hamilton's bus company voted earlier this week to not remove the poster. Josh Gosknak, supervisor of customer services at the Hamilton Street Railway, assembled 12 female members of an advisory committee to judge the ad. Only one of the 12 voted against it, he said. Transportation Commissioner Dale Turvey, who made the final decision, said in a written statement to Cluett that the poster abides by the Canadian Code of Advertising Standards and will not be removed. He said the decision was also based on the fact that the ad is running across Canada without controversy. But Cluett said she won't be deterred by the decision. She has already mailed a complaint to the Canadian Advertising Foundation, which handles complaints about advertising. Yvonne McKinnon, Vice President of Advertising and Promotion for Mediacom in Toronto, which books space for ads, said the ad was taken to the Canadian Advertising Foundation, which handles complaints about sex role stereotyping and exploitation, because she thought there might be concerns. The foundation first felt the ad contravened its guidelines, McKinnon said, but they reconsidered because the guidelines also allow for tasteful, positive, relevant sexuality in advertising. A foundation spokeswoman said the foundation let the ad pass despite concerns about potential complaints because it included a celebrity. We were concerned that it could be considered an exploitive or sexist ad, but because it was Drew Barrymore, we thought it was worth taking a chance. But Cluett said whether it's a celebrity or an unknown model is irrelevant. She also wrote to Media Watch, a national watchdog group that works to eliminate negative stereotyping in the media. So the interesting thing about this particular ad is apparently it shows very little of the genes. Like it's showing the top of her body, and apparently like a little tiny bit of the genes is showing. So, we were talking about the different types of ad hooks. Clearly famous people is the hook if you're not even seeing the genes, right? Okay, so the assignment questions that go along with this particular reading is number 8. In the newspaper article, borderline genes ad passes scrutiny here. What is the complaint raised by the woman and her daughter? Was the matter resolved to satisfy the mother? Write at least 2 sentences, and that's worth 3 marks. Number 9, do you believe that the woman had a valid complaint? In other words, do you agree with her complaint? Explain why or explain why not. Try and write at least 2 sentences, 3 or 4 would be great. Number 10, find an example of an article in a newspaper or magazine that contains some kind of complaint about something. Underline the complaint and submit the actual article or a copy of it. A good hint is look at the letters section in newspapers. They often have complaints there. But you can also just enter, complaints about ads or whatever on Google and things will come up. Assignment 11 is the main forms of media, TV, newspapers, magazines, the internet, and radio, all share a variety of messages with the public. And these media forms can have both positive and negative influences upon us. You are to comment on this statement. So that's the statement, and you decide, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And explain why. So this is a half-page handwritten response. It's worth 12 marks. Remember that we are now at the stage where assignments such as this are submitted in paragraph format. It might be one really long paragraph or 2 shorter paragraphs. You could choose to comment on whether you think media is a negative or a positive force in our lives, or you could choose to look at ways that media is both a positive and a negative force in our lives. Don't forget our paragraph format, an opening topic, or you would state your opinion there. Argument 1, argument 2, argument 3, argument 4, argument 5 might be optional, might need that. And then a closing argument or a restatement of the opening sentence. And you would follow that again if you have a second paragraph. Remember to take some time to brainstorm your ideas a bit before you get started. Think about what are some negative effects you've seen from media on your children, on education, on yourself. What about on friends, on family, or on your community? Can you give specific examples? Like, let's say you thought you had a negative influence on children. Well, what are some examples? Like maybe, really young girls are dressing more sexually because they see so many grown-up women dressing sexually. That might be an example. Oh, hang on. Got negative both times. One of the times should be positive. What are some positive? That's weird. Positive effects that you've seen from media on your children, on education, on yourself, on friends, on family, and on your community. And again, can you give specific examples? So for example, one positive effect might be, with COVID, we saw some changes in how healthcare were delivered, for example. All of a sudden, certain kinds of healthcare that you always had to travel for, suddenly we could do it very easily over telehealth. That was a really positive effect of media. And until COVID kind of came along, as horrible as COVID was, there was a lot of extra stress because of travel that suddenly got eliminated. So that's one example. Checklist for a good assignment. So please make sure to go back over your work and make sure it meets these criteria, okay? All sentences should have a clear subject, a noun or a pronoun that's the topic. All sentences should have a clear predicate, a verb plus other words that explain what the subject is doing or describes the subject. Paragraph format's been followed. Your paragraph uses a variety of sentence structures: simple, compound, complex. Punctuation rules have been followed. Spelling has been checked. Grammar rules that have been taught have been followed. We've talked about a lot of different grammar rules over the last few weeks. Overall, the sentences make sense. I really encourage you, read it out loud or have a friend read it out loud to you. Sometimes when you read it out loud, you realize, oh, I forgot a word or two, or, that doesn't quite make sense. So I really, really encourage you. This is one of the best ways to make sure your writing doesn't just sound a little bit funny, is to read it out loud. Make sure the overall flow of the paragraph, like the arguments and such, makes sense as well. Okay, I am going to kind of zip it back to our page here. Okay, so this particular page was talking about rewriting the sentence because they've kind of left off things, okay? So you add quotation marks and the other punctuation where needed. So example A, they've got "what a great day," yelled Mr. Dobbins. Here, they've added the quotation marks. They've kept the comma. They added another quotation mark. They added a period. Okay, so I'm going to go over to our smartboard. I've got like 3 minutes. I've probably got time to do 1 or 2 examples really quickly here. And I'm just going to try that. Okay, so under the bridge is a golden treasure, said John. Okay, so said John is my tag. Under the bridge, I'm going to start with my quotations and then say that bridge is a golden treasure. Okay. Is he asking a question? No. Is he excited? Doesn't sound like he's super excited. I apologize. I would just put a comma here. Okay. And then I'd close my quotations. And then I would write "said John." And then I'm finished the sentence now, so I add my period. Okay. So that would be number 1. Oh, I've got time for another one here. "I wonder if I'm going to be able to graduate this year," said Fred. "I only have a couple of B's and A's." So you can see kind of right here is our tag. They've put it in the middle kind of trickily here. So I'm going to start kind of over here. So I've got enough room. "I wonder if," and they forgot to put the apostrophe there. "I'm going to be able to graduate this year." Okay. So I'm actually going to put a question mark there because "I wonder" is kind of a question word. And then I'm going to put the quotation marks. Then I'm going to get "said Fred." Then I'm going to put a comma because the sentence is still going. And then I would start some new quotation because he keeps on talking. "I have only a couple B's and A's." Okay. So I'm going to put a period here now because it's the end of the sentence. So it's doing double duty. It's the end of him talking and it's the end of our sentence. So it doesn't need a second period outside that. The 1 period inside the quotation marks is plenty, and then we're doing good. All right, I am running out of time, so I'm not going to add any more. Hopefully these assignments make sense. If they don't, by all means, give me a phone call and ask me, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it and help you out with anything that you need help with. And thank you so much for showing up today. Hopefully you'll do okay with this, and I will talk to you tomorrow.